Part 6, August. The North Pole. The Spud lamp was a big hit at the science fair. Jack and I got an A for it. It was the first A Jack got in any class all year long, and he was so excited. All the science fair projects were set up on tables in the hall. It was the same setup as the Egyptian Museum back in December, except this time there were volcanoes and molecule dioramas on the tables instead of pyramids and pharaohs. And instead of the kids taking our parents round to look at everybody else's artefact, we had to stand by our tables while all the parents wandered round the room and came over to us one by one. Here's the maths on that one. 60 kids in the grade equals 60 sets of parents, and it doesn't even include grandparents. So there's a minimum of 120 pairs of eyes that find their way over to me. Eyes that aren't as used to me as their kids' eyes are by now. It's like how compass needles always point north, no matter which way you're facing. All those eyes are compasses, and me, August, is the North Pole to them. That's why I still don't like school events that include parents. I don't hate them as much as I did at the beginning of the school year, like the Thanksgiving Sharing Festival. That was the worst one, I think. That was the first time I had to face the parents all at once. The Egyptian Museum came after that, but that one was okay because I got to dress up as a mummy and nobody noticed me. Then came the winter fair and the winter concert, which I totally hated because I had to sing in the chorus part. Not only can I not sing at all, but I felt like I was on display. The New Year art show wasn't quite as bad, but it was still annoying. They put up our artwork in the hallways all over the school and had the parents come and check it out. It was like starting school all over again, having unsuspecting adults pass me on the staircase. Anyway, it's not that I care about the way people react to me. Like I've said a gazillion times, I'm used to it by now. I don't let it bother me. It's like when you go outside and it's drizzling a little bit. You don't put on your boots just for drizzle and your big raincoat. You don't even open your umbrella. You walk through it and you barely notice your hair getting wet. But when it's a huge hall full of parents, the drizzle becomes like this total hurricane. Everyone's eyes hit you like a wall of water. Mum and Dad hung around my table a lot, along with Jack's parents. It's kind of funny how parents actually end up forming the same little groups of friends their kids form. Like my parents and Jack's and Summer's mum all get along with each other. And I see Julian's parents hang out with Henry's parents and Miles's parents. And even the two Max's parents seem to hang out together. It's so funny. I told Mum and Dad about it later when we were walking home, and they thought it was a funny observation for me to make. I guess it's true that like finds like, said my mum. The Oggy doll. For a while, the war was all we talked about. February was when it was really at its worst. That's when practically nobody was talking to us, and Julian had started leaving notes in our lockers. The notes to Jack were stupid, like, "You stink, big cheese," and "Nobody likes you anymore." I got notes like "face freak," and another that said "get out of school." Summer thought that we should report the notes to Miss Rubin, who was the middle school dean, or even Mr. Tushman, but we thought that would be like grassing. Anyway, it's not like we didn't leave notes too, though ours weren't really mean. They were kind of funny and sarcastic. One was, "You're so pretty, Julian. I love you. Will you marry me?" Another was, "Love your hair." Another one was, "Tickle my feet." We signed them from a made-up person that me and Jack came up with called Balua. She has really gross habits, like eating the green stuff in between her toes and sucking on her toenails. And we figured someone like that would have a real crush on Julian, who looked and acted like someone from a Kids Bop commercial. There were also a couple of times in February when Julian, Miles and Henry played tricks on Jack. They didn't play tricks on me, I think, because they knew that if they got caught bullying me, it would be big time trouble for them. Jack, they figured, was an easier target. I had too many people looking out for me just because of how obvious I was with my face. So one time they stole his gym shorts and played monkey in the middle with them in the locker room. Another time, Miles, who sat next to Jack in the form room, swiped Jack's worksheet off his desk, crumpled it into a ball and tossed it to Julian across the room. This wouldn't have happened if Miss Petstower had been there, of course, but there was a supply teacher that day, and the supply teachers never really know what's going on. You can tell them pretty much anything and they'll believe you. Jack was good about this stuff. He never let them see that he was upset though, and even though I think sometimes he was. The other kids in the year group knew about the war, except for Savannah's group. The girls who were neutral at first, they didn't really take sides, but by March they were getting sick of it. And so were some of the boys. Like another time when Julian was dumping some pencil sharpening shavings into Jack's backpack, Amos, who was usually really good friends with them, grabbed the backpack out of Julian's hands and returned it to Jack. It was starting to feel like even the rest of the boys weren't bullying Julian anymore. Everyone was getting pretty bored of it, which begs the question why they went along with it in the first place. Then, a few weeks ago, Julian started spreading this ridiculous rumour that Jack had hired a hitman to get him and Miles and Henry. This lie was so pathetic and far-fetched that people were actually laughing about him behind his back. At that point, any boys who had still been on his side now jumped ship, and they were clearly neutral. So by the end of March, only Miles and Henry were on Julian's side, his two cronies from the beginning, and I think that even they were getting tired of the war by then. I'm pretty sure everyone stopped playing the plague game behind my back too. No one really cringes if I bump into them anymore, and people borrow my pencils now without acting like the pencils got nits. People even joke around with me sometimes now. Like the other day, I saw Maya writing a note to Ellie on a piece of Ugly Doll stationery, and I don't know why, but I just kind of randomly said, "Did you know the guy who created Ugly Dolls based them on me?" as a joke. Maya looked at me with her eyes wide open, like she totally believed me. And then, when she realised I was only kidding, she thought it was the funniest thing in the world. "You're so funny, August," she said. And then she told Ellie and some of the other girls what I had just said, and they all thought it was funny too. Like at first they were shocked and a bit embarrassed that I'd made a joke about myself being based on an ugly doll, but then they saw what I was laughing about it too, and they felt better. And then the next day I found a little ugly doll keychain sitting on my chair with a nice little note from Maya that said, "For the nicest Oggy doll in the world, from Maya." 6 months ago stuff like that would never have happened, but now it happens more and more. Also, people have been really nice about the hearing aids I started wearing. I think I might be starting to get some more friends. Lobot. Ever since I was little, the doctors told my parents that someday I'd need hearing aids. I don't know why this always freaked me out a bit. Maybe because anything to do with my ears bothers me a lot. My hearing was getting worse, but I hadn't told anyone about it. The ocean sound that always plays in my head had been getting louder. It was drowning out people's voices, like I was underwater, when obviously I wasn't. I couldn't hear teachers if I sat too far at the back of the class, but I knew that if I told Mum and Dad my hearing was getting worse, I'd end up with hearing aids, and I was hoping I could make it through the 5th grade without having that happen. But then, when I went for my annual hospital checkup in October, I flunked the hearing test, and the doctor was like, "Dude, it's time." And he sent me out to a special ear doctor who took impressions of my ears. Out of all of my features, my ears are the ones that I hate the most. They don't look normal in any sense of the word. They're like tiny closed fists, and they just sit on the sides of my face. They're too low on my head too. They wouldn't sit where your ears sit. They look like squashed pieces of pizza dough sticking out the top of my neck or something. A little bit like Shrek's ears, but worse. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a little, but I do really hate them. When the doctor first pulled the hearing aids out for me and Mum to look at, I groaned. "Oh, I'm not wearing that thing," I announced, folding my arms in front of me. "I know they probably look kind of big," said the ear doctor, "but we had to attach them to the headband because we had no other way of making them stay in your ears." See, normal hearing aids that normal people have usually have a part that wraps around the outer ear to hold the inner earbud in place. But in my case, because I don't have any outer ears, they had to put the earbuds on this heavy-duty hairband, so I looked like a girl that was supposed to wrap around the back of my head. "I'm not wearing that, Mum," I whined. "Oh, you'll hardly notice them, love," said Mum, trying to be cheerful. "They'll look just like headphones." "Headphones? Look at them, Mum," I said angrily. "Have you ever seen a pair of headphones that look like that? I look like a Lobot." "Which one's Lobot?" said Mum calmly. "Lobot?" The ear doctor smiled as he looked at the headphones and made some adjustments. "The Empire Strikes Back. The bald guy with the cool bionic radio transmitter thing that wraps around the back of his skull." Can't remember," said Mum. You know, Star Wars stuff, I asked the ear doctor. No Star Wars stuff, he answered, slipping the thing over my head. I practically invented Star Wars stuff. He leaned back in his chair to see how the headband fit and took it off again. Now, Oggy, I want to explain what all this is, he said, pointing to the different parts of one of the hearing aids. This curved piece of plastic over here connects to the tubing on the ear mould. That's why we took those impressions back in December, so that this part that goes inside your ear fits nice and snug and it won't fall out. This part here is called the tone hook, okay? And this thing is the special part we've attached to this cradle here. The Lobot part, I said miserably. Hey, Lobot's cool, said the ear doctor. It's not like we're saying that you're going to look like Jar Jar, you know. That would be bad. He slid the earphones on my head again carefully. There you go, August. So, how's that? Totally uncomfortable, I said, unimpressed. You'll get used to them quickly, he said. I looked in the mirror. My eyes started tearing up. All I saw were these tubes pointing out from either side of my head, like antennas. Do I really have to wear this, Mum? I said, trying not to cry. I hate them. They don't make any difference. Give it a second, bud, said the doctor. I haven't even turned you on yet. Wait till you hear the difference. You'll want to wear them. No, I won't. And then he turned them on. Hearing brightly. How can I describe what I heard when the doctor turned on my hearing aids? Or what I didn't hear when he turned on the hearing aids? It's too hard to think of words. The ocean just wasn't living inside my head anymore. It was gone. I could hear sounds like shiny lights in my brain. It was like when you're in a room where one of the light bulbs on the ceiling isn't working, but you don't realise how dark it is until someone changes the light bulb or turns them back on and you're like, whoa, it's so bright in here. I don't know if there's a word that means the same as bright in terms of hearing. I wish I knew one, because my ears were hearing brightly now. How does it sound, Dog? The ear doctor asked. Can you hear me okay, bud? I looked at him and smiled, but I didn't answer. Sweetie, do you hear different? Said Mum. You don't have to shout, Mum. I nodded happily. Are you hearing better? Asked the ear doctor. You don't need to shout. I'm not hearing that noise anymore, I answered. It's so quiet in my ears. We're not shouting, love. It's just the white noise must have gone, Mum said. The doctor agreed, nodding. He looked at me and winked. I told you you'd like what you heard, August. He made more adjustments on the left side of my hearing aids. Does it sound really different? Mum asked. Yeah, I nodded. It sounds lighter. That's because you've got bionic hearing now, Oggy, said the ear doctor, adjusting the right side now. Now, touch here. He put my hand behind the hearing aid. Do you feel that? That's the volume. You have to find a volume that works best for you, because only you can hear that, obviously. We're going to do that next. Well, what do you think? He picked up a small mirror and he had me look in the big mirror at how the hearing aids looked from the back of my head. My hair covered most of the headband, actually, and the only part that peeked out was the tubing. Are you okay with your new bionic Lobot hearing aids? The ear doctor said, looking in the mirror at me. Yeah, I said, and I wasn't fibbing. It wasn't half as bad as I'd expected. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. James, said Mum. The first day I showed up at school with the hearing aids, I thought some of the kids were going to make a big deal about it, but no one did. Summer was glad I could hear better, and Jack said it made me look like an FBI agent or something. But that was it. Mr. Brown asked me about it in English class, but it wasn't like, what the heck is that thing on your head? It was more like, if you ever need me to repeat something, Oggy, make sure you tell me, okay? Now that I look back, I don't know why I was so stressed about it all this time. It's funny how sometimes you worry a lot about something that turns out to be nothing in the end. Via's secret. A couple of days after spring break ended, Mum found out that Via hadn't told her about a school play that was happening at her high school the next week. And Mum was mad, really mad. She doesn't get mad that much, although Dad would disagree, but she was really mad at Via for doing that. She and Via got into a huge fight. I could hear them yelling at each other in Via's room. My bionic Lobot ears could hear Mum saying, "But what is with you lately, Via? You're moody and miserable and secretive. What is so wrong with me not telling you about a stupid play?" Via practically screamed. "I don't even have a speaking part in it." "Well, your boyfriend does." and he's part of our family now. Don't you want us to come and see him in it? No, actually, I don't. Stop screaming. You scream first. Just leave me alone, okay? You've been really good about leaving me alone my whole life. Always August. So why do you choose high school to suddenly be interested? I've got no idea. Then, I don't know what Mum answered because it got all very quiet and even my bionic robot ears couldn't pick up a signal. My cave. By dinner, they seemed to have made friends. Dad was working late. Daisy was sleeping. She'd thrown up a lot earlier in the day and Mum made an appointment to take her to the vet the next morning just to get her checked out. The three of us were sitting down and no one was talking. Finally, I said, "So, are we going to see Justin in a play?" Via didn't answer but looked down at her plate. "You know, Oggy," said Mum quietly, "I hadn't realised what play it was, and it really isn't something that would be interesting to kids your age." "So I'm not invited?" I said, looking at Via. "I didn't say that," said Mum. I don't think it's something that you'd enjoy." "Yeah, you'd get totally bored," said Via, like she was accusing me of something. "Are you and Dad going?" I asked. "Dad'll go," said Mum. "I'm going to stay at home with you." "What?" Via yelled at Mum. "Oh, great! So you're going to punish me for being honest by not going?" "You didn't want us to go in the first place, remember?" answered Mum. "Yeah, but now that you know about it, of course I want you to come," said Via. "Well, I've got to weigh everyone's feeling here, Via," said Mum. "What are you two talking about?" I shouted. "Nothing," they both snapped at the same time. "Just something about Via's school that's got nothing to do with you," said Mum. "You're lying," I said. My mum was the worst liar ever. "Excuse me," said Mum, fake shocked. Even Via looked a bit surprised though. "I said, you're lying," I shouted. "You're lying," I screamed at Via, getting up. "You're both liars. You're both lying to my face like I'm an idiot." "Sit down, Oggy," said Mum, grabbing my arm, embarrassed by the scene I was making. I pulled my arm away and pointed at Via. "You don't think I know what's going on," I yelled. "You just don't want your brand new fancy high school friends to know that your brother's a freak." "Oggy," Mum yelled, "that's not true." "Stop lying to me, Mum," I shouted back. "Stop treating me like I'm a baby. I know exactly what's going on." I ran down the hallway and then got back to my room and slammed the door behind me so hard that I actually heard little pieces of the wall crumble inside the door frame. Then I plonked onto my bed and pulled the covers up on top of me. My sister was embarrassed of me. I threw my pillows over my disgusting face and then piled all of my stuffed animals on top of the pillows like I was inside a little cave. If I could walk around with a pillow over my face for all the rest of time, I would. I don't even know how I got so mad. I wasn't really mad at the beginning of dinner. I wasn't even sad. But then all of a sudden, it just kind of exploded out of me. I knew Via didn't want me to go to her stupid play, and I knew why. I figured out that Mum would follow me into my room right away, but she didn't. I wanted her to find me inside my cave of stuffed animals. So I waited a little more, but even after 10 minutes, she still didn't come in after me. I was quite surprised. Mum always came to see when she knew something was wrong. She checks on me in my room when I'm upset about stuff. I pictured Via and Mum talking about me in the kitchen. I figured out that Via was feeling really, really, really bad, and I was secretly glad. I pictured Mum totally laying on the guilt, and Dad would be mad at her when he came home too and found out what had happened. I made a little hole through the pile of pillows and stuffed animals and peeked at the clock on my wall. Half an hour had passed and Mum still hadn't come in my room to check on me. I tried to listen for the other sounds in the other rooms. Were they still having dinner? What was going on? Finally, the door opened. It was Via. She didn't even bother coming over to my bed, and she didn't come in softly like I thought she would. She came in quickly. "Goodbye." "Oggy," said Via, "come quick, Mum needs to talk to you." "I'm not apologising. This isn't about you," she yelled. "Not everything in the world is about you, Oggy. Now hurry up." "Daisy's not feeling very well. Mum's taking her to the emergency vet. Come and see her." I pushed the pillows off my face and looked up at her. That's when I saw that she was crying. "What do you mean? Say bye." "Come on," she said, holding out her hand. I took her hand and followed her down the hall to the kitchen. Daisy was lying down sideways on the floor with her legs straight out in front of her. She was panting a lot, like she'd been running in the park. Mum was kneeling beside her and stroking her. What happened? I asked. She just started whimpering all of a sudden, said Via, kneeling down next to Mum. I looked down at Mum, who was looking worried. I'm going to take her to the animal hospital downtown, she said. The taxi's coming to pick me up. The vet will make her better, right? I said. Vets can do that. Mum looked at me. I hope so, honey, she said quietly, but I honestly don't know. Of course he will, I said. Daisy's not been feeling well for a long time, and she's very, very, very old. But they can fix her, I said, looking at Via to agree with me. But Via wouldn't look up at me. Mum's lips were trembling. I think it might be time that we say goodbye to Daisy, Oggy. I'm very sorry. No, I said. We don't want her to suffer, Oggy. Sometimes it's kinder to do the hardest thing, she said. The phone rang. Via picked it up and said, okay, thanks, and then hung up. The taxi's outside, she said, wiping her tears with the backs of her hands. Okay, Oggy, open the front door for me, please, sweet, said Mum, picking Daisy up very gently, like she was a huge droopy baby. Please, no, Mum, I cried, putting myself in front of the door. Oggy, please, said Mum. She's very heavy. What about Dad? I cried. He's meeting me at the vet's, Mum said. He doesn't want Daisy to suffer either, Oggy. Please say goodbye. Via moved me away from the door and held it open for Mum. My cell phone's on if you need anything, Mum said to Via. Can you cover her with a blanket? Via nodded, but she was crying even more now. Say goodbye to Daisy, kids, Mum said, tears streaming down her face. I love you, Daisy, Via said, kissing Daisy on the nose. I love you so much. Bye, girlie, I whispered into Daisy's ear. I love you. Mum carried Daisy down to the step. The taxi driver had opened the back door and we watched her get in. Just before she closed the door, Mum looked up at us standing by the entrance to the building and gave us a little wave. I don't think I've ever seen her look sadder. Love you, Mum, said Via. Love you too, Mum, I shouted after her. I'm sorry. Mum blew a kiss to us and closed the door. We watched the car leave and then Via closed the door. She looked at me a second, then she hugged me very, very tight while we both cried a million tears. Daisy's toys. Justin came over about half an hour later. He gave me a big hug and said, sorry, Oggy. We all sat down in the living room, not saying anything. For some reason, Via and I had taken all of Daisy's toys from around the house and had put them in a little pile on the coffee table. Now we just stared at the pile. She really is the greatest dog in the world, said Via. I know, said Justin, rubbing Via's back. She just started whimpering, like all of a sudden, I said. Via nodded. Yeah, like 2 seconds after you left the table. She said, Mum was going to go after you, but Daisy just started, like, whimpering. Like how? I asked. Just whimpering, I don't know, said Via. Like howling, I asked. Oggy, like whimpering, she answered impatiently. I don't know how else to say it. She just started moaning like something was really hurting her, and she was panting like crazy. And then she kind of just collapsed a bit, and Mum went over to try and pick her up, and whatever she was doing was obviously hurting, because she then bit Mum. What? I said. When Mum tried to touch her, Daisy bit her hand, Via explained. Daisy never bites anyone, I answered. She wasn't herself, said Justin. She was obviously just in pain. You have to remember what an amazing life she's had. Dad was right, said Via. We shouldn't have let her get this poorly. What do you mean? I said. Did he know that she was poorly? Oggy, Mum's taken her to the vet loads of times in the last 2 months. She's just not been herself at all. Have you not noticed? Well, yeah, but I didn't know that she was really that poorly. Just thought she was, not feeling herself, like what we sometimes don't feel like ourselves. Via didn't say anything, but she put her arm around my shoulders and pulled me closer to her. I started crying all over again. I'm sorry, Oggy, she said softly. I'm really sorry about everything, okay? Do you forgive me? Do you know how much I love you, yeah? I nodded. Somehow that fight we'd had just a few hours ago didn't seem to matter at all now. Was Mum bleeding from the bite? I asked. It was just a nip, said Via. Right there. She pointed to the bottom of her thumb to show me exactly where Daisy had bitten Mum. Did it hurt her? Mum's okay, Oggy, she's fine, don't worry. Mum and Dad came home 2 hours later. We knew the second they opened the door and Daisy wasn't with them that Daisy was gone. We all sat down in the living room around the pile of Daisy's toys. Dad told us what had happened at the animal hospital, how the vet had taken Daisy for some x-rays and blood tests, and that she'd come back and said that she had had a real problem for a long time. She was having trouble breathing. Mum and Dad didn't want her to suffer anymore, so Dad picked her up in his arms like he always did, with her legs straight up in the air, and him and Mum kissed her goodbye over and over again, and whispered to her while the vet put a needle very gently into her and let her go to sleep peacefully. She wasn't in any pain at all, like she was just going to sleep. A couple of times while he talked, Dad's voice got trembly and he had to clear his throat. I've never seen Dad cry before, but I did see him cry tonight. I had gone into Mum and Dad's bedroom looking for Mum to put me to bed, but saw Dad sitting on the edge of the bed, taking off his socks. His back was to the door, so he didn't know I was there. At first, I thought he was laughing because his shoulders were shaking a bit, but then he put his palms on his eyes and I realised that he was crying. It was the quietest crying I've ever heard, like a whisper. I was going to go over to him, but then I thought maybe he was whisper crying because he didn't want me or anyone else to hear him. So I walked out and went to Via's room, and I saw Mum lying next to Via on the bed, and Mum was whispering to Via, who was also crying. So I went to my bed and put on my pyjamas without anyone telling me to, and put the nightlight on and turned the light off, the big light off, and crawled into the little mountain of stuffed animals I'd left on my bed from before. It felt like all that had happened a million years ago. I took off my hearing aids and put them on the night table and pulled the covers up to my ears and imagined Daisy snuggling in with me, her big wet tongue licking my face all over like it was her favourite face in the world. And that's how I fell asleep, remembering happy memories of me and Daisy.